Now, why do you think it is, if you had to, when tracing it back to your childhood, is it because chaos was your emotional home?
It's really hard to say. I wish I had an obvious answer. It's really kind of a mystery. Chaos was normal, but I think that that's a little too oversimplified about it. I think troubled people felt safe for me because when you fundamentally feel like you're kind of like less than everybody, you're damaged goods, you may look good on the inside, but sooner or later they'll see you're the crazy girl, There's this feeling of like, I remember like I'd get asked out or something by nice men who had it together and, were just sincerely asking me out on a date. And I remember thinking, ew, there's a square or something, just like, I don't know, ew. And it was just more attractive to me if somebody had a whole like kind of energy of pain about them and trouble. And I thought, why on earth would I like that? So the best, I sort of polled my audience. I'm like, why do we do that? Why do we sort of reject people who have a good life?
But isn't the allure of the bad boy, isn't
yeah,
that...
what is it?
Yeah.
But I think it's because the good boy makes us feel shame about ourselves, and that's uncomfortable. And the bad boy, you can't possibly be so bad that he would reject you. So you're safe. You're safe with him. And there's a little bit of kinship in people who have had hard pasts, but it's more than that. I think, I've learned a lot from people who, like, they're gay, right? And they were like, I fought it, but I realized I was gay. I'm like, yeah, I just have an attraction to people that I didn't decide on. But in my case, it's pathological. In my case, it's just going to cause nothing but heartache. So I decided, if that's my trouble, if I just can't avoid the bad ones, then I'm not going to have a relationship. I'm a mom, so that's just going to come off the table. And with the help of a mentor friend, I wrote down about 200 things, like, it's going to have to be like this, and it cannot be like this. And then I thought, what an impossible list. You'll never find anybody like that. But I just decided that's how it's going to have to be. And it had gotten, when that one guy died, I was just like, I will go to any lengths not to have this problem again. It was so painful. And so there was a couple years there, no dating, not a lot of friends, went to some meetings, was trying to recover my spirituality because I was really devastated by that death. It was kind of like turned me into a gray stone. I was just, ugh. And then took care of myself, really paid attention to my kids, being very present with them, having our routines, taking little bike rides together, going to the Y, just kind of doing good things. I gradually felt better, and I set these new standards for myself. And funnily enough, once I set the standards, the only person I ever dated is my now husband. It turns out there was one guy who did fit what I was talking about, and it wasn't crazy stuff. It was like, can't have a problem with drugs and alcohol, needs to love and accept me as I am, and I, given that I will, do my best, needs to love and accept my kids almost as if his own kids. They have a dad, so it's a little awkward, but like, kids are expensive, they're a nuisance, and he can never resent that. He's got to be like with me on doing it, and I got that, and he's great. And it's really healing to be in a good relationship. Very challenging for a person with attachment wounds. Like, we've had our moments where I was like a feral raccoon. I'm like, I don't know, just what you're saying. I think you're going to leave. I just think so. And gradually calming down, mostly.
Wow.
Yeah.
It reminds me of I guess this is a more masculine kind of take on the idea that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. That guys will say, I never want to be a part of any club that'll have me. Uh-huh. So I wonder, in the context of dating the so-called bad boy, it's like, conversely, when dating the good guy, well, maybe I don't deserve to be in this in this kind of relationship, or like, what does he see in me? Yeah. Or if he's...
There may be something deep under there, but you know what? It seems boring. And if you're addicted to drama as your way of coping with how sad you are and how fundamentally lonely you are, then a nice guy's not going to give you enough drama. I think that might be it. I think it's the drama. Drama feels like love. That's what it is. And I have a word for one of it. It's eroticizing abandonment.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, and people talk about like makeup sex, That's eroticized abandonment, where it just like amplifies. But some people are like stuck in that mode all their lives. So it's like, oh, that's like the most intense kind. That's true love. That's true love, where they leave you and then they come back. And that hour, that's the shit.
Wow. You're describing pretty much all of my relationships.
What's the attraction?
I guess I like the drama. I mean, I'm not, I have in my past is a litany of unsuccessful relationships, or not a litany, but I haven't really. Maybe I'm not being fair to myself. I tend to enjoy my friends will say that I like the girls who are kind of crazy, in air quotes. That's what like my male friends will say, and the girls that I date. I mean, I wouldn't call them crazy. They're not crazy, but they all
high drama.
Yeah, lots of drama.
Yeah,
high maintenance, lots of drama. We fight, we get back together, we have makeup sex. And, I feel like fighting is kind of there's obviously a line, in interpersonal drama where like you obviously can't cross, like no physical violence, nothing like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do feel like there is an adaptive aspect to fighting. It's like a stress test on the relationship, and I think part of that is like makeup sex. I think that there's an adaptive role that can play.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that any relationship is perfect.
No, and a little bit of spice is no problem. But
yeah. I like a lot of spice. Apparently.
But when it's very, very spicy, what happens is your capacity to feel and connect with anybody starts to just get shut down.
Yeah.
It costs you a great deal to live that way. So there's a problem. There's a long-term cost. Plus the relationships don't tend to work out. And that horrible haunting ghost man off in the distance of like, you're going to be alone forever. He's like, don't come closer. It's off in the offing, and being alone forever is like everybody's deepest fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a happy life requires more connection. And so I used to look at people who were good at it and I go, wow, they're so connectable. They have all that connectability. And to me, it was like this magic air where people just want to be their friend. Everything's easy for them. They don't just go into their head and get all fraught about entering the room. And I thought, I just wish I could do that. And in the book, I tell the story of a woman I met in England. This is when before I was married to my first husband. And we barely knew each other. We got pregnant, and we didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to do. I decided what I was doing. And about 7 months into the pregnancy, he's like, all right, I'm in. Let's give it a go. And he brought me home to England to meet his family. And they were as nice as they could be, considering they'd never heard of me, And there we were, and I was very pregnant. And I met his dad, and his dad reminded me of Austin Powers' dad, who was like Michael Caine. Do you remember that character? Hey, baby, I'm gonna try. Very weird. And they have these little tiny cars, and this is the 90s, so they really had tiny cars. So we got into his tiny car, and there's like me and my giant stomach and my shabby clothes, and we go pick up his girlfriend, and she gets in the back seat with me. Everybody has to get out, and we have to like fold ourselves like praying mantises to get into the car. And she was so nice. She goes, hello, isn't it wonderful being pregnant? She's like 70 years old. And the men were being, frankly, kind of rude and dismissive. And they literally left me in the car once and forgot to help me get out. And I was stuck for like an hour and a half because I couldn't get out of the little tiny car by myself. So pregnant, I couldn't crawl out the window. Wow. Yeah, I was mad. I was like really mad. And she came in, she just had a way. She just instantly became my friend. She was charming. She had connectability. She goes, let's all go to my house. We'll play Scrabble. And the grown-ups, I mean, I was like 30, 35, but they were older, and they poured tall drinks for themselves, and we played Scrabble. But when we walked into her house, I was like, oh my God, it was a mansion. And then I found out who she was, and her last name was like this like famous brand name in the UK. She was like from the family, a very old family, as they call them.
Wow.
And at that time, I used to fear wealthy people and thought they all hate you and they're mean and they're selfish and greedy and all that. She was so wonderful. She so had it going on. She made that day so much fun for me. And even though I had shabby thrift store clothes on, maternity they weren't maternity clothes, but I fashioned them into it with safety pins. I was broke. I was with a guy who didn't really want to be with me. I was in a bad way. And she was great. And I was like her. I'm going to be like her. And I'm really grateful to her to just show me what that's like. I think sometimes the most successful people have that. When I was a comedian, I noticed that. When I did little tiny clubs or steakhouses in Reseda, the people weren't very nice. But Bud Friedman at the Improv, he was so nice, such a gentleman, so helpful. That's what I've noticed. And I just knew, if you don't have connectability, you're never going to really succeed. Everything depends on being able to understand people and get along with them. And I had to teach myself to do that. And so that's what the book is. It's step by step, 9 common things that get in your way. You don't have boundaries. You fill your life with jerks. You are avoidant and you don't even realize it. And I walk people through that and what you can do. And then we get into the sort of charm school time. It's here's how to have a conversation and how not to ruin the conversation with some very common habits that practically everybody does.
Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.